All right, Real Life Street Stars. We are back once again with the Real Life Lord Reacts, and we have breaking news in which Hammer has come down. Well, not the Hammer, but the feds have picked up and arrested Diddy. And from a legal standpoint, we want to get you on the line, kind of see what possibly may happen next, what some options are, what some avenues are. What does this mean? Of course, we're going to date back to the November lawsuit, which kind of opened up the federal eyes on Diddy and other people to come out of the woodworks and talk about things that happen as far as them being victimized by him. A lot of lawsuits, a lot of civil complaints, not a lot of criminal ones, but then finally you start hearing some criminal things. Uh, Take us through this. Take us through as far as the arrest, what this may mean, kind of what's going to happen, and we'll ask some more questions in the meantime.
So at this point, like I said earlier, I mean, if people want to go back and watch some of the earlier discussions that we've had about this case, like I said before, the feds don't waste money and don't waste time. And so at this point, they've probably raided his home and found things that connected the dots to what witnesses have told them or what evidence they already had in their possession. And so now they had enough information to go to a grand jury and go ahead and get this indictment. And it's something that he has to be extremely concerned about. He should have been concerned prior to all the things that he was doing, going to New York, going to Wyoming. His legal team should have really had him in defense mode and probably even on offense mode, looking to potentially steer this off. A lot of times, if you work with the feds early enough, you could do a walkthrough or basically walk in, do an arraignment, and not necessarily have the authorities come and pick you up. And so this was extremely troubling. I told you guys before that in cases like this, when the feds take this type of action, they mean business. And so I don't know if he was advised or he basically shrugged off what he was told. But it's something that is going to put him in some serious hot water now that they have moved forward and gotten these indictments.
Could I ask you, when you say he should have been on defense and possibly on offense, when you look at, like you said, the Wyoming, being in New York, out and about, what are some things that you think, if you were his legal advisor, that he could have been doing, either defense or even leading towards an offense?
The first thing as a defense attorney, when I was a defense attorney, I would go through and say, okay, what are some of the things that we need to worry about, or who are some of the people that we need to worry about? And then what are some of the situations we may need to worry about? And then at that point, start crafting my defense as if I was going to trial. Then using that, it helps a defense attorney get an understanding of what they may be up against. And sometimes you're able to actually, I like to say it, have a trial before the trial. There's been plenty of times I've gotten before prosecutors and we discussed certain issues that they had concerns about, and I've been able to explain those things in such a way or provide evidence that negated what they may have had, so that those were less charges that were brought forward. And so you have to make sure that you're prepared. I mean, Johnny Cochran said it himself: preparation, preparation, preparation. And so those attorneys who follow that model, we don't wait. I never wait until if I'm doing a civil case or a criminal case, I'm not waiting for you to bring it to me. I'm bringing it to you because I need to make sure that you understand the real narrative and not necessarily a made up worst case scenario of a narrative.
Very much understandable. With that being said, now that an arrest has been, reported by TMZ and the media outlets are taking advantage, reporting it as well, they're going, pretty much minute by minute, just letting people know what's going on. What What does Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, what does what should be expected to happen next in this regards?
The next thing, he's going to be arraigned, and there's going to be a discussion of bail, if bail will be available or bail to him. And one of the concerns that he has to have is that he was picked up at an airport prior to his home being raided, right? Very suspiciously. And then he's also made some financial transactions with the selling of some of his interest in corporations, or I think there was also some issues or some things that were sold as far as his interest in some of the masters of his artists. Those things are going to be red flags for a court to say, look, this guy has the very well has the means that if we let him out of jail to flee and for us never to put our hands on him. So therefore, we're not going to afford him bail. And that's going to be troubling because it is extremely difficult to fight your case from prison. I personally don't like doing that because they tell you that they don't, and law enforcement is not going to like me for saying this, but I know that they listen to those jail tapes even though they shouldn't. And so, you if you've ever been in jail and they ask you, are you a lawyer and blah blah blah, there have been instances where I know lawyers' conversations with their clients have been heard by law enforcement. And so it's very difficult to fight your case when you're in jail. And so a lot of times, if I have a client, I won't do telephones. I'm not doing anything unless we're in a room without a recording device and we're having a face to face conversation.
Mm, makes sense. Can I ask you, in your opinion, is Diddy a flight risk?
Absolutely. Like I said it before, this man has sold assets and has the means. He has a private plane. I mean, according to the records, I'm not in the case. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a defense attorney in the in this particular case. But according to reports, when he got onto his private plane last time, he turned off his tracker. I don't know how accurate that is, but if that is something that is possible, then that gives him the ability to hop on an airplane and fly anywhere in this world and not be tracked. And so, knowing that, it's going to be almost impossible for him to for a court to potentially release him.
So they normally say the feds don't get involved unless they probably got an ironclad case. They're not gonna, like you said, they're not gonna spend their money of the people's money to try to go after a person without saying that we have something here. Um, Everyone knows the statistics. The federal government normally has a 97 and above percent conviction rate. Um, will there be a situation in which you see that Irv Gotti beat the feds? So some people have beat him, but will this probably be a plea, a cop out, a plea deal for less time for something the federal government may want? You feel?
I think honestly, the only way that he is going to receive some consideration in this case is if he implements other individuals. And this becomes a star powered criminal matter. He's going to have to talk about people that were at these events or at these parties or who may have been present during these incidents that he's accused of doing. And it's going to have to be someone that the feds can hang their hat on and say that they're going to bring down. So this is my next prediction. I think possibly they're going to investigate this as a sex ring in which there were other artists who took part in these parties or events in which women like Cassidy were abused, or raped, or whatever the term that you want to use. Um, they're going to be looking for other people to name in this criminal matter, and so the only way that he is possibly going to look at less time is if he provides those names and details so that they can make further arrests.
So again, without you knowing much about the case and what evidence they have, the criminal matter here you feel could be a orchestrated sexual ring versus a RICO or like trafficking, but just
It's going to be all of the above. It's
Mhm.
it's it's going to be all of the above. You know, when the government decides to come after you in a criminal matter, they're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, out the window. I mean, they're coming and hoping that it sticks. And so RICO, because one of the concerns that I have in the RICO charge is that you remember the video that involved Cassidy.
Yes.
The person who got rid of that video was paid. And
Mm.
so I've said it on, I think the first time that I was on your YouTube channel, that anytime that those monies involved the use of interstate commerce and transfer, meaning wires, meaning Cash App, or any type of electronic transfer of funds, that brings that in. And so, you know, there was a lot of potential hush money that was issued during this time period, and so all of those things are going to be taken in consideration.
Okay. The one thing I make sure we want to let the fans know is this trial could be an ongoing process.
Mhm.
We've seen a situation where R. Kelly's trial took 8 years, but he was out on bond. Do you feel because they went so quickly to an arrest from, I guess, a little bit after November to an arrest, that this may be speedy or this may be long and drawn out?
No, it's going to take a minute because you know you got to remember that that petition that Cassidy had originally filed was pretty lengthy, and it made allegations. It made tons of allegations, and so you're going to have to look at what part of those things and what part of things that the feds found outside of that are going to be used against them, and so it's going to take his defense team time to sort through all those things and potentially line up defenses and send private investigators out to talk to individuals and find out if they truly believe the same things or hear the same things from these potential witnesses that they heard.
Okay, so if there are anyone else out there that was involved in a Diddy part, just maybe possibly did something illegally from the early '90s up until now, what should they be doing? Because I know someone's probably listening that was at a party and are curious if they should call a lawyer or not.
I mean, I'm going to let you say it. I'm not going to say any names, but there are some key individuals that have been in several of these videos. At this point, I'm sitting down with my lawyer and I am describing what I saw and what took place and trying to get an assessment of my risk, right?
Right.
So let's say, for example, you, let's say you and I were at a Combs event and you were a host, all right? Let's just say you were a host and you would call me up and say, hey, look, I hosted this party. I was there between these hours and these hours, but my face and voice are all over these videos. Do I have cause for concern? I'm going to say, let's sit down and look at it. Is there anything in your emails, anything in your text messages with your communication with him that would lead anybody, a reasonable witness, or I'm sorry, juror, to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that you had insight to know what was going on behind closed doors at those parties? And if it is, then at that point, we need to make sure that we start creating that buffer to prevent you from getting sucked up into this black hole. If you didn't, then at that point, there may be a lawyer who says, hey, look, I don't know is my client a person of interest? Right? And they say, well, no, you know, or they say yes. Say, okay, that's fine. Then we'll do a proffer agreement. We'll come down and we'll tell you what we know, but I'll let you know my client doesn't really know anything. They were hired to do this party because they were famous or because they were a name draw to draw people to this event. However, he knew nothing about what took place behind closed doors, or she didn't know anything that took place behind closed doors. And so we would go ahead and have that discussion so that we can get taken off of the list. If you wait, then at that point, you're fighting against an indictment or fighting against an arrest. It's a lot easier not to get indicted or to fight it before you get arrested.
Outside of fighting it, if let's say someone was involved in an incident with Sean Combs, can they go ahead and just say, "Hey, I'm here to help, not hurt. Here's what I know. Let me just
Yeah.
get all the way in front of it."
I mean, it's something that's done on a regular basis.
Okay.
It's something that's done on a regular basis. And so, that's something that that individual has to decide if that's something that they want to do. And I get it, man. I mean, look, we have we have a culture that says that thou shalt not snitch, thou shalt not tell. But the reality is it happens more so than not, especially nowadays. That whole mantra about not snitching and not telling and all of that, that doesn't really hold ground anymore. This is not the age of the wise guys. And so, chances are if you think that you're going to hold true and not snitch or not tell, and no one else and everyone else is going to line up and do what you're doing, okay. It's like drawing straws. First person out the gate gets the best deal. Second guy, he gets 10% off, or 50% off. Next guy gets 40. Next guy gets 30. Now you get to a point where it's like the feds are like, we got enough. So we're not offering any more deals. You should have came to us first. And because you didn't, you're going to go down in this black hole or in uh, this hole or black hole with everybody else.
Speaking of black holes, I'm gonna stay on the top side of this. When it comes to Diddy going into a jail system, even if you wanted to be in, PC, they, general pop, they have to put a man of that nature and that stature in PC, regardless of his request. Correct?
Well, we're talking about federal prison, right? And so, I think we've all seen the videos of R. Kelly singing inside the jails. And so, there could be a situation where he's placed in a pod or in a unit in which his security is maybe not necessarily that much at risk. Um, the discussion around Combs has been more around adult women versus underage women. And like I said before, uh, Robert Kelly has been in jail for some time, and we really haven't heard about any incidents dealing with threats or his life or injury. And so we've actually seen him singing amongst other inmates. And so, there could be a similar situation.
Okay, definitely. Rook, do you have anything you want to throw in?
No, I did see something that was funny. I wouldn't say funny, but I thought was kind of interesting. Someone had mentioned that if R. Kelly and Sean Combs are placed in the same prison, that you could have the greatest remix album ever.
The,
Uh,
those
and
are the
so
king of the remixes.
yeah, and so you could have some of the greatest albums of all times, but you know
it,
I,
it is
I'm
interesting because Sean Combs, Suge Knight is still in jail. Now you have Diddy, have R. Kelly, and this, Bill Cosby. It's just
well,
interesting
Cosby's
how,
out,
yeah,
so
Bill Cosby's out, but
Yeah.
the fact that they got him, it's interesting that uh, when our people look at, like these celebrities, and we feel like, hey, everyone could get touched, like literally, even if you're a billionaire, they can, if you commit crimes, of course they're coming after you.
Right.
no, that's absolutely correct. Now, I made I made that comment to bring a little levity to the situation, but these things and these accusations and these charges are absolutely the most serious of charges that you can receive. And so, because it doesn't really involve money. So, when people and defense attorneys talk about people who stole money, they talk about it being a victimless crime, that no one was physically hurt, no one died, and things of that nature. Here, you're going to have, and from what we've seen from lawsuits, men and women lining up to potentially testify about the harm that they received from this individual over a course of decades. And so that is something that you just can't take lightly. And so we're going to be watching this case closely because here you have someone who has inspired generations through their music. He started, what was it, the MTV band group reality show that he did.
Yeah, he ran the city. I mean, he
Right.
ran the city.
He brought to us, Biggie, one of the most prolific rappers of all times. He graduated or attended an HBCU, and was at one point a shining star in the crown of Howard University. All of these things affect us as a community. And so, we can't really take this lightly, and there'll be comments and jokes and things made about it. But when you look at what it does to our culture,
So,
it's a blemish.
can I ask you, do you feel America is ready to hear the trial of Diddy and the testimony of things that were going on in these parties that we don't hear about, but slowly we've been hearing about over the last year, and people are like, "What and huh and what?" Do you think we're ready to hear some of the depravity that's was going on behind the walls, possibly again allegedly, until we hear what we hear that was going on behind the walls of Sean Combs' mansions?
Man, unfortunately, yes. I mean,
So we're ready. So we're ready.
I mean, look, look. There's some individuals who don't want to hear it, but because he was such a large part of their life, they want to know. And then you have a segment of the population who live for this type of thing, right? They search the internet, they search things, they create, make up stuff about cases like this. And then you'll have people who will say that they were at the parties, and come to find out when the parties were actually going on, they were 2 years old, so they really couldn't have been there. And so you'll have people who will sensationalize the situation for likes and comments and all the other things that come with this. And so it's going to, like I said before, man, it really does a damaging thing to the culture, because you have artists out there who have legitimate parties and legitimate events, who they just want their friends to come through and play. Like, you might have, I'm not going to say any names because I don't want anyone to take a name and attach it to the situation, but you might have one of the world's best R&B singers, and he invited some rappers over, and they have open mic, and they have something like, I'll say, Prince. Prince used to basically open up his house and have artists come through and perform, and have the general population there. And so you would have these events that people would actually have these wonderful free concerts at. And now people will be afraid to do those things. They will be afraid to share themselves with the general public, because they don't want anyone to use this as a barometer to say, well, if you go to one of these events with one of these famous people, this is what happens to you. And so, unfortunately, it's going to affect the culture, and it's going to affect how artists engage with us in the future.
Let me ask you: if you were a prosecutor and your law firm was prosecuting this case, would you be listening to maybe our interviews and listening for people who said they were at those parties to maybe reach out to them to ask them, things that they may have seen? You
Yes.
like the way I did that? You like the way I did that?
Yeah, hey, look, man, look. Yes, Yes, yes. They do not leave any potential lead
it,
untouched.
and Larry, I did have one question for you.
Okay.
Being all the evidence that has been brought to this case, if Diddy asked you to represent him, could you and would you?
That's a good question, man. That's a really good question. And so I've haven't really been in the criminal game as of lately, but I would have to be convinced. I really would have to be convinced. And so the one thing about me is I love the Constitution, right? Because the 13th Amendment allowed people who look like me, to be lawyers, to go to school, to be free, to do these things. And so because of that, I love the Constitution. And I believe everyone has a right to have their day in court. And I despise when law enforcement basically steamrolls over individuals and throws things that aren't accurate at them or truthful. And so, I would have to seriously be convinced, and not convinced with the money. You would have to really convince me that there was something that I needed to do in order to protect the Constitution. So you would have to show me that there were some misdealings with law enforcement, there were some untruthful statements by witnesses, there were some things that took place. Basically, it would have to be, hey, look, I'm not a good I wasn't a good person. I did have a problem with domestic violence, but these other things that they're talking about aren't necessarily true. And I have done this XYZ, and so I need your assistance because 80% of this, what they're coming at me with, is not factually accurate. And so I would have to be convinced.
Yeah, I would say you represent a firm that, the name on that firm was part of one of the biggest cases in the 90s, where in which the late O.J. Simpson was, acquitted after it looked like, he was pretty much guilty with some of the way things went. But the Johnny Cochran law firm is a highly, highly, highly respected law firm. So I don't know. You may get a call, but I do want to ask from your, and you can rebuttal that if you choose. But I do want to ask from an idea, just from the way a courtroom should look, and Sean Combs sitting on that stand, should his lead attorney, his lead defense attorney, should that be a person of ethnicity? Should it be a woman? Should it be a man? What would you lean towards as far as the way it looks in front of a judge, or do you need more information for that?
I need more information. I need to know. So one of the things that I do when I try a case, I look at the demographics from the jury pool, and you want to try to have someone that resonates with that community, right? So if I'm doing a case and it involves Montana, I need an attorney who has that feel of a rancher. And so not necessarily that they're the lead attorney, because if you think about it, Johnny Cochran was the lead attorney in the O.J. Simpson trial, but he had a team that was set up that was solid and that community could believe. And so, I had the opportunity to spend some time with some of the remaining members of the defense team and had an opportunity to learn from them and become good friends with them. And so, you want to make sure that you have people who can resonate with that community. So, you're not necessarily going to have a lead attorney. You want the best of the best. You want the best opportunity to win the case. And so you're not going to be looking for any Joe Schmo just to check a box.
Definitely. And to kind of land this thing, I know you, of course, are advocate for the young attorneys that's coming up. Of course, that's out there in law school right now. Of course, probably practicing for their bar exam and going from there. How closely would you say they should watch this case if it is going to be televised, or not televised, but more so the information will flow freely regarding this trial? How closely should they watch this?
So I'm going to say this, man. We're going to do the PSA because we do a
Okay.
PSA every time, right? We do a PSA every time. Man, if you don't get your behind in them books and study and figure out what you need to learn in order to pass these exams, whether it's in school or whether it's the bar exam, and then use this as a recreational tool to free your mind, do not let this be your guiding light. Do not let this be the thing that you hold on to. Stay focused. Always stay focused on your goal, right? I might be going on vacation. I don't know what a vacation is because I can't remember the last time I was on one, but I might have vacation in 2 weeks. I'm not thinking about my vacation. I'm thinking about my clients and what I have before me. And when that bell goes off and it's time to get out of school, that's when my vacation starts. But until that bell rings, man, stay focused on your goal, stay focused on your purpose, and the world will take care of itself. But you got to obtain what you were set out to obtain before you start indulging in the rest of this stuff.
Okay. And I have one last final question. If this thing is going on and Donald Trump becomes president, and let's say he attended a party back in the 90s, can he give a pardon? Can he just, does he have the ability to go in there and say, man, this man is pardoned?
Man, look here, brother.
We're going to make believe.
Let me say this. If that scenario happened and Sean Combs' attorney had any back channel connections to reach him, I'll be making those calls. I would be actually be making those calls now. I would actually be making those calls now. So on day one, after he takes the oath, that night, right? Because you've seen it. President does the oath, he gets in, and then he signs, his first piece of legislation, and then it's off to the races.
Yeah.
I'm making sure that my pardon is at the top of the pile for his signature. I'm supplying the pen, I'm supplying the paper, I'm delivering it on the Pony Express. And so I'm making sure that that deal gets done so that my client can get out of jail. And so, I mean, it's a really, really, man, that's one I haven't thought about, but that's a real possibility.
That's a
That's a
real
real possibility. That's
man.
a real possibility.
With that being said, again, we are speaking on this live with attorney Larry Taylor, the real life lawyer. This information came in literally probably just an hour or so ago that they have come in on an arrest for Sean Combs. And thank you for burning the midnight oil and just staying up late just to even have this reaction with us. I mean, you're quick to it, and your knowledge is, again, it goes without saying, it's definitely appreciated. I'm sure they're going to have buku things to say in the comments. I know you sometimes jump in there. We would love to get those comments and maybe do another one of these coming soon after we have more information about what's going to happen after arraignments and things like that. But as of now, this is live. This is fresh. This is, hell, it may even be fake news. We don't even know. TMZ could have got it wrong, but I think there is video of Diddy getting arrested. And this thing is real, and we're about to move forward with this. But I do thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming on and speaking to us. And if you can, let them know always how to follow you, what channels can they reach you on, and how to see your content of your own.
They can always reach me you can reach all my social media through tailormadelaw.com. You can reach me through there. My Instagram is Larry Taylor II, or the Real Life Lawyer Instagram. And so and then also you can go to my YouTube channel at Tailor Made Conversations. Stay tuned to that. We have a wonderful interview. You guys shared the interview that we did with Woody at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. Should be coming up and going out soon. And so make sure you subscribe, make sure that you like, make sure that you follow, so that you can get the information fresh and not hear about it secondhand or have somebody remix cuts of it. You can see it all fresh, either right here with the real street stars and Joker and the rest of the real life individuals. And so make sure that you subscribe and you like, and make sure you support these guys because they're doing a really good thing. They're doing remarkable things. Joker was showing off at the CBC.
Oh yes,
and so
Kamala was actually there. So
So
definitely.
so he was showing off. But what that tells you, and now I'm doing another PSA. What that tells you is that these guys were valuable enough to be invited to be at one of the most pivotal events in this country for African Americans. And
Right.
so do not take them or this podcast for granted. So make sure you follow, make sure you share, because we want to make sure that we support so that they too can be one day the TMZ. Make sure that you can hear from people who look like you what's really happening and people who come from the same communities that you come from. So let's support them. Let's support the street stars so we can do the right thing and help these young men and women continue to bring us good information.
Definitely well said. With again, goes without saying, we appreciate you, and we'll close it out for tonight. But with that being said, you know, you are the truth, the real life lawyer. You are a real life street star, man. Attorney Larry Taylor. We appreciate you.